Not enough people are asking if we should even want the SpaceX stock at all. And that's the question that I want to tackle in this video because SpaceX is known to be a deeply unethical company. And depending on where your ethics lie, the depth is proportional, right? Depending on how you fall on certain issues, how unethical SpaceX gets, it becomes is exponentially increased. And so everybody is talking about like the valuation and like multi-trillion dollar number, and then Elon Musk's net worth as a result of this, the first man as a trillionaire, blah 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 blah. And those are all important things to discuss. Don't get me wrong. These things matter. We should be talking about these things. However, not enough people are examining whether this is a stock we even want in the first place, particularly for those of us who are to whom ethics matter, who have certain values and want to see the companies that we invest in, that we relate to, that we are somewhat connected to, abide by. We want to see them abide by certain ethical standards, mostly because those are our values too. And so when these companies do not abide by those standards, the question then has to be asked about like, do we even want them? Do we want them as stocks in our investment portfolio? Do we want to allow our portfolios to grow and increase our net worth and our ability in the future to have wealth, and therefore, a specific quality of life, be able to support ourselves, etc., etc. But like, do we want to enrich our portfolios off the back of a company for whom these same values are not priority? Do the means by which that company grows justify the ends of the enrichment of our portfolio? I think that's a question worth asking. And so I wanted to ask it and raise the ethical quandaries that SpaceX is involved in, and therefore have you sound off. And you tell me, do you want SpaceX stock in your portfolio? Aside from the fact that like the stock valuation is fluctuating and volatile and all these other things, right? Like aside from those things, is this a stock that you actually desire? The question is to be asked. So I'm gonna fire off some things at you. All right. And I'm gonna read my notes. So stick with me here. But these are some of the things that I have encountered doing my research as it relates to SpaceX's unethical operations and practices. Okay. Because SpaceX has a deeply problematic history. And none of this is not a lot of this is new. Okay. Like this has been around. SpaceX has had issues. I mean, Musk has issues. So like obviously SpaceX has issues because he is the controlling director of the company. Like he has 82% voting rights. So like, we can start there. We can start with the fact that like this man with questionable values and questionable lots of things, quite frankly, has such a controlling stake over the company and determines the direction that the company goes in. Are you like ethically? Is that good for you? Concentration of power. Concentration of power within a company that controls such wildly valuable resources for the planet. Like we are talking about communication and like internet connection. Look, like so actual connectivity between people. In some cases, even the different military's ability to do their job. like this whole thing with Ukraine that happened where Musk was like, no, you can't, like, we're not going to activate Starlink over the Crimea because we're like, that would do your research into that, yeah. But he had a say, and his resources were the thing that they needed to for you like for that Ukraine needed to fight back against the Russian invasion, and he refused. And as a result of his refusal, the Ukrainian drones, the drones that Ukraine was using, lost power, and therefore were not able to complete their operations, like actually target and strike where they were supposed to strike. Um, and I don't remember if it's like losing power, losing connection, losing connectivity, whatever it was, they couldn't do their jobs. Okay, so we're talking about connection across the entire planet through Starlink, which is like 60%, 61% of the revenue of SpaceX. So like massive share of the company revenue, right? And then not only Starlink, but like, I mean, not only Starlink for the purpose of like just human communication and connectivity that like everybody needs at this point to stay connected, but also up to date, aware, be informed, be educated, right? Like that's what the internet has become for us. And Starlink gives us that ability across the globe in ways that like have not been possible before. One, two, like the ability to determine whether a military operation succeeds or fails. Your country's sovereignty in the hands of a company, bro. That is intense. And one man being at the helm and control of that. Yes, Lord. This is a problem. I don't know if y'all see it, but this is a problem. It's a problem to me. I don't know how y'all feel about that ethically, but the problem's me. Let me drink some water. Not to mention the fact that not only is SpaceX responsible for like communication, internet connection, but and that being like a commodity that now the whole world relies on, right? Like we rely on the internet. And so having SpaceX provide that in ways that make it more accessible for so many people, like we can't dispute that that is an extremely valuable service, but it also consolidates power within the hands of one organization. And because Musk has 82% voting rights within the hands of one man. Okay, that's one resource. Now we're talking about orbital resources. Because have you seen the Starlink grid in orbit? And like how most of the satellites up there are Starlink. Like it just by virtue of space that these satellites take up in low Earth orbit to deliver this service. Starlink, by virtue of the space that it takes up, owns low Earth orbit because there's no other nation or power or organization with that number of satellites taking up that much space. Now, there are laws, international laws that say nobody can own space in low Earth orbit. There's a whole hand grid video about this. I'll link it so y'all can go watch it. Right? Like this has been said. This is in law. However, just the de facto occupying of said space means SpaceX owns it. Means Starlink owns it, and by virtue, SpaceX owns it, and by virtue, maybe like we can do the upstream math, right? And see that Musk is virtually, I mean, maybe this is a broad sweeping statement and maybe it's too general, but like the man controls the resource of our planet's orbit. Ethically, I don't know if y'all have a problem with that, but I do. Okay? That much power being concentrated in one organization is deeply problematic to me. Deeply. Not to mention in the hands of one man. Okay, moving on from that. Other unethical things. Labor, workplace safety. SpaceX has problems. We know this. Okay, there've been multiple lawsuits, injury rates above the like the industry standard. I think I saw somewhere like triple. Yeah, in 2024, the Starbase site recorded 4.27 injuries per 100 workers, close to triple the aerospace manufacturing average. So you're 3 times more likely to get injured working at the Starbase site. And Reuters documented more than 600 injuries since 2014. There's been a worker death in May 2015. Like people have been trying to blow the whistle on exactly what's happening. They're like, let me read this. SpaceX illegally fired, there's been a complaint alleging that SpaceX illegally fired 8 employees who signed an open letter about workplace culture. Rather than contest the facts, SpaceX is suing to have the NLRB, which is the union, declared unconstitutional. Worker protections, not a thing. Is that what we're saying here? Workplace safety, not a thing. I mean, not everybody's walking out injured, so maybe the workplace safety thing is a reach, but like, obviously there's something wrong. Y'all. Also, the other ethical thing, the other issue that I want to bring to the fore here. A January 2026 update to Starlink's privacy policy reportedly states that the company can use customer data, audio, video, and shared files that I'm assuming you transmit over a Starlink connection. It somehow gains access to that and can use it to train AI on an opt-out basis, but there are no settings to opt out. And so investigations have kicked off, obviously. Kicked off in Ireland, in Canada, in the UK, in Brazil, and in California. Because like, what do you mean? You're just gonna take our, like, this is a severe breach of privacy and not allow us to opt out of it. You say on an opt-out basis, but provide no settings in your user interface to opt out. Brother, something is wrong. Okay? Something is wrong. And of course, there's like wastewater related environmental violations that have been documented at the Starbase site. Y'all, these are all documented ethical issues associated with SpaceX. A lot of them specifically related to some of the ones that I pointed out related to Starlink, other ones related to the actual aerospace operations of SpaceX. So, coming back to my question, do you want this stock? Do these means, eroding workplace safety, eroding worker protections, attacking your right to privacy, and right to not have your data used to train AI without your consent, do you want that? Do those means, do they justify the end of enrichment of your portfolio? Question to be asked and answered. There's also the industry-wide ethical problems that plague the tech industry in general. There's like the conflict minerals of tin, titanium, tungsten, and gold, and like their real documented supply chain issues. I've talked about that in other videos, so I won't dive into it here. Like actual labor problems internationally in the sourcing and mining of these minerals, child labor, modern day slavery, etc. A lot of those issues have been documented with, like, there's a cobalt issue that's been documented with SpaceX. I'm not SpaceX, sorry, Tesla. There's been like a major battery supply issue that has been documented there. But we know that these problems plague the entire industry. It's not been documented as associated with SpaceX, but we know these sourcing, mineral, mining, and labor issues are a problem across the tech industry. Um, and so, like, again, this now is the biggest IPO ever in history, right? The company's valuation is the biggest valuation in history. And so then the question becomes, do we want this stock? Considering that we know that the tech industry is rife with these unethical problems: child labor, modern day slavery, supply chain, like deep supply chain problems. The issue of neocolonialism and funneling wealth out of countries upstream to the global north, empire, and the people on the ground never actually get to see the benefits of the resources that they mine, of the resources that they extract from their own land that they have lived on for centuries, funneling that upstream to the global north. And the people on the ground never getting to see the benefits of it. This is what we normalize when we own any kind of tech stock, but we're talking about SpaceX today. This is what we normalize when we own SpaceX stock. And I use the phrase normalize. I use the word normalize very specifically because I'm not saying that we fund these things, because we know that when we buy stocks, this money does not go to the company, right? Like, our money doesn't go to the company, it goes to the investors that we bought the stock from. These are secondary transactions. However, it does normalize the operations, because we're saying when we invest in these companies in this way, we are saying the means justify the ends. We're saying, I want the portfolio enrichment. So however we get there, all good. In case it's not clear by now, I don't want SpaceX stock. But I want you to be able to answer this question for yourself and judge for yourself whether you want SpaceX stock. And quite frankly, y'all, I also recognize that there is a real, as repulsive as all of this is, there is a real tension here of like, no, but Chelsea, investing in stocks, investing in the stock market is literally the easiest and most accessible way to build wealth. And building wealth helps you build power, and power allows you to influence these systems. One, wealth is not the only form of power. There are other kinds that you can engage. So keeping that in mind. Also acknowledging the tension. This is hard. This is not an easy decision to come to. And I'll just say this. I talked about this in another video, so I'll link it somewhere here so that you can go and watch that video. Because I think there's a difference between saying, I do not want this stock, but I will use this stock, and here's how I will use it. Because I don't think we can ethically invest in SpaceX. I just don't. The definition of my ethics do not allow me to invest in SpaceX. And whatever your ethics are, if they allow you to invest in SpaceX, I question. I'm just saying. Like, just broadly on the definition of ethics as not being exploitative to people or the planet, and causing, sustaining, and perpetuating or exacerbating harm. Like, just based on that definition alone, any company that does any of those things is deeply unethical. And just from everything we've said here about SpaceX, we can check the unethical box. Like, that's done. Okay, that's very clear to me. So I don't think we can ethically invest in SpaceX, but I do think there is a conscious investment in SpaceX that we can make. And I spoke in that other video that I mentioned about what that conscious investment looks like. So I'll link that so you can go ahead and watch that. All right. So back to the question. Do you want the SpaceX stock? Because, okay, we've got real documented historical issues and evidence for SpaceX being unethical in some ways. And we have real documented issues across the tech industry of tech companies being unethical, right? So it is likely that SpaceX can fall in these categories as these other tech companies have. Cool. But now there's the changes that they've instituted around this IPO and the things that are unfolding right now in and around this date and time of the IPO. So let's talk about it. Yeah. Because I don't know if you all have heard this, but domestically in the US, SpaceX has raised prices. I don't know if y'all saw this, but it's its first major increase in 2023, landing right around this IPO time. And we can think about this one way. I'm not saying this is exactly what has happened, but I'm saying one way that we can think about this has everything to do with market pressure. Once you IPO, there is the pressure to continually grow and increase profits, especially considering that the tech industry accounts for a significant percentage of the market cap of the companies within the stock market. Right. And so when you even think about, and now SpaceX is not on the S&P 500, they won't be pending a few things until mid, like, I think in my research, I saw mid 2027, something like that, mid 2027 or 2028, one of them. Let me find the exact date for you. Yeah. They won't be able to meet the requirements to be listed on the S&P 500 until like mid 2027, and that's even if they meet those requirements anyway, right? So heard on that. But if you just look at the S&P 500 and how much each of those funds and indexes and each of those companies, like the weights that they carry within the fund, y'all, it accounts for somewhere between like 32 and 40% of the entire market cap of the fund, which means that all of the growth of the S&P 500, a lot of it over the past several decades has come from tech companies, tech booms, the dot-com boom, internet, like all of these things, right? And with SpaceX having this huge valuation, let's say they do get listed on the S&P 500, right? I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know what the weight will be of SpaceX in that entire like market cap. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Forget it. Forget that argument. We're not going there. What I was saying was some of the signs that we're starting to see of unethical practices since this IPO and in and around this IPO time, right? So one thing that we're seeing, as I said before, SpaceX is a massive commodity throughout across the entire planet, right? That is very clear. SpaceX provides a very essential service. I mean, the example I gave earlier with Ukraine and Russia fighting in the Crimea, and literally the military unable to defend the sovereignty of its own land because it didn't have a Starlink connection. Bruh. So they have now started to employ a hook them and squeeze them kind of a model. Because now that penetration has gone massively global, they're now raising prices. And we can hypothesize that those price increases will continue across the entire world. Because they've already started in the United States. And if they start at home first, they're not going to stay cheap internationally. Not with Elon Musk being affiliated with our dear orange man or evil orange man. Like, come on. They're not going to, with Mr. President Trump being affiliated with Elon Musk and the rhetoric being America first. You think that the rest of the world is going to get a $5 or $10 increase? Doubtful. I don't think so. But let us see, right? This is hypothesizing. What we do know is that on the ground in the US, there has been an increase in prices as of June 2026. Actually, one family in Nebraska reported that it saw its bill jumped 44%, nearly $500 more for the year. So like they've locked in their consumer. They have it's the same thing that the AI companies are doing, y'all. Like like dominate the market, let the public realize how much they need these tools, and then hike the prices. So we are now dependent on the tools and we have to pay these prices. Like we don't have no choice. Again, I don't know if your ethics allow for that, that kind of consumer exploitation, but like, bruh, mine don't. But you tell me if you want, if the ends justify the means, right? If the ends of squeezing the consumer justify the means of enriching your portfolio. There's this whole thing with operational licenses in some territories as well, because in I think it's South Africa, Starlink has not launched because because they will not allow Musk will not allow 30% ownership of the operating license to be retained by South Africa. Like the equity cannot flow back into the country. Of course not. This is our business. We have to keep the profit. The locals can't benefit. Of course not. What do you mean? Same in Namibia, by the way. Namibia refused in April because their threshold in South Africa, the 30% local ownership of the operating license is like it's 30%. In Namibia, it's 51%. Musk ain't having it. So, sovereignty of your local infrastructure and like ability to have a say in what comes into your country and to benefit from that, not a thing with the way that Starlink and by virtue SpaceX operates? I guess not. This is the evidence that we have, y'all, that we have to assess and figure out where does this sit on my scale of ethics, and is therefore am I therefore okay with owning this stock if it's in violation of my ethics? There are several other things that I could talk about. But I think the final thing that I do want to say is that SpaceX runs Starshield, and that is key in national security missions for the US. Where you fall on weapons and military operations, and what you give if you are a US citizen, what you enable and normalize with your investment in this company, that's up to you. If you are not, I mean, if you categorically disagree with some of the wars that the US government has started in any recent history, the fact that SpaceX enables those things, do you want to own that stock? Now, hear me. I'm calling out SpaceX, right? Because of recent news, this IPO, etc. But this is also true for Boeing, for a bunch of different other companies. Like, it's not just SpaceX, okay? So if you've never done the research, now would be a good time to think about like the things that ethically repulse you and you are adamantly against, and just check. Just check what's in your portfolio and what those companies enable, endorse, or actually like practice, if they are associated at all and enmeshed at all with the things that ethically repulse you. Because if they are, again, the question is to be asked, do you want to own that stock? It ain't just SpaceX we're talking about here. Like, really, y'all, I'm using SpaceX as a case study for analyzing your portfolio, even though that's hard to do depending on how many companies you have within your portfolio, because you could have different funds, right? Within those funds are a multitude of companies. And I'm not going to send you to research each one tonight because that's a lot. But over time, thinking about these things, right? Analyzing your portfolio, analyzing where the companies that you hold are in conflict with your ethics and your integrity, your values, and asking the question, do the ends of enriching my portfolio justify the means of this company's operation? Because that is what you are normalizing with your investment. Yes, your investment does not go directly to the company, but it does normalize the operations of said company because it allows the company to increase their valuation, to leverage financing in other ways. Like, it all helps them, which normalizes their operations. And sure, the argument can absolutely be made that my investment is, I said this on another video, an electron of an atom of a molecule of a drop in the bucket, right? It's so tiny. Individual investments are so small, particularly when I'm not like an 8-figure earner, right? I'm gonna reach them numbers there yet. However, this is not so much about whether or not my investment will make a difference. This is about my ethics, my values, how I want to reduce my complicity in this broken system that I live within because I'm already complicit by just being alive. By breathing the air I breathe, having the phone I have, watching this on YouTube, on my laptop, or my smart TV, like, I'm already a part of the problem. So how do I reduce my complicity footprint, if you will, and intentionally shift to becoming a part of the solution? That's the question that we're asking here. And we start by being aware of what the heck's in our portfolio, which takes us back to the question, do we want SpaceX stock to be a part of it? Now, I said a lot of things. So the question now becomes, how do you know? How do you know if you have SpaceX stock? Because some of us could have it and don't know. If you manage your own investments, you need to look at your portfolio for total market funds. Okay, any fund that is a total market fund, that's what you are looking for. So I'm going to give you the tickers to watch for. Vanguard, here we have VTSAX and VTI. Okay, Fidelities are FSKAX and FZROX. So if you have any of those funds, you already hold SpaceX stock. You already have it, okay? Also, if you look for NASDAQ 100 funds, such as QQQ, you will hold those starting on July 7, because on July 7, SpaceX will naturally just cause be added to the NASDAQ 100, which, side note, y'all, that is such a messy loophole in the policies that run the market. Because, like, what do you mean? This thing just came out, like the IPO just happened. How are we already adding this company to just like lump it into everything? I mean, I can understand the total market fund, but the NASDAQ 100? Bruh. That's insane. And so, for those of us who don't manage our portfolios, who you have your 401k through an employer, right? You're not going to see a public ticker. You're not going to see any of these things that I just gave you. So what you need to do is go to your 401k statement and like look for anything that talks about having a total market fund, a total market index, NASDAQ 100 index. Because if you have a total market index in your 401k, you already have it. And if you have the NASDAQ 100 index, it's coming in a couple of days. All right. Now, this is how you identify whether or not you have it. And I think, this is the like side note on the fact that you you end up with it if you have a NASDAQ 100 fund. I think that is so messy, y'all. And I think there was a senator who pushed back against this, actually. But that is so messy because, like, what do you mean I didn't even give consent to have this company that I could be completely ethically against funding my retirement? Like, I don't want it. I might not want it, but it's just sitting in my 401k just because I get my 401k through my employer. Bruh, can we not? Okay. Yeah. I think I don't know if that senator, I don't even remember her name right now. It was a woman, if I'm remembering correctly. I think it's like Warren or Walters Elizabeth. I think that was the name. I'll put something right here so to correct myself if I was wrong. But yeah, y'all, I'm just like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? The lack of, anyways, let me tell you how you can work this out, right? Because like if everything I've gone through, if you've listened to me and you're like, Chelsea, I don't even need to do my own research. I don't want this. I don't want it in my portfolio. Me no want it. If that's what you're saying, I'm gonna tell you a few things that you can do. Don't take this as financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. This is literally just from our own research. All right. I'll give you some ideas. If you need to go do some more research, grab this transcript, drop it into your chosen whatever, your chosen large language model, dig into the claims. Come back and cuss me off if I'm wrong. I am okay with that. All right. Let's talk about this in the comments, because to me, these are the questions that we need to be asking. Right? I am okay if you disagree with me. Like, the point is to ask the question and answer it for yourself and choose what you want, not just because the market is the market. We don't do that around here. We make intentional choices, okay, as much as we can. And so if you're choosing to have it and you disagree with me, cool. But if you don't want it, then that's a different story, right? So here's what you can do. Acknowledging in a total market fund, SpaceX is a tiny fraction among thousands of stocks, and diversification is real, right? So knowing that if you do have a total market fund, right, you have one of the funds I said earlier. You have VTSAX, you have VTI, you have FSKAX. That one is hard to say. And FZROX. You have any of those. Those are Vanguard's and Fidelity's versions, like, but I don't, there could be others that you have, right? Whatever, you have a total market fund, you could accept, that's an option, that this is just a tiny fraction of all of the stocks in that fund, and diversification is a thing, right? However, also acknowledging that even a tiny fraction of SpaceX funds might be worth a lot more than the other funds in the market. So knowing that the weight is different, right? That's what we've been saying. The weight is different. Okay. So that's one option. You could shift out of a total market fund and join the S&P 500, right? Like, you could shift completely out of total market funds into the S&P 500 funds. Now, acknowledging that a lot of the issues that we brought up with SpaceX are in some way, shape, and form already issues that all of the tech companies in the S&P 500 deal with. So if it's ethics you're changing on, that's probably not the simplest solution either, because you're complicit in those two. And you can do the research because it's out there. Okay? So it's an option. It's an option. Whether or not it's a good one, you kind of have to decide. There is also the idea that, like, you can use an ESG fund. I'll put a video right here so to tell you what I think about ESG funds. Because I don't think they're ethical at all. Greenwashing is a thing. But again, I'm just giving you the options, right? Options. If you have direct indexing as an option, you can replicate an index while excluding specific stocks. So I think that comes if you are managing your own portfolio, right? Or if a brokerage firm is managing it for you and allows your input in, like, what you index in your portfolio. So you can tell them to remove it, or you can remove it yourself. So you can like duplicate the index, but remove those funds or remove those stocks, those specific stocks. Those are some options. Those are some options. Another option is to question your entire portfolio as to whether it's ethical or not, and completely divest from the stock market. But again, I acknowledge that this is the most accessible and easiest way to build wealth, so that's not necessarily an option that everybody feels like they have. So yeah, y'all. I don't know. I don't know if any of those options feel good for you. What are you doing? Do you want, so the question at the end of this video is, do you want the SpaceX stock? If ethics are a thing for you, if the issues that I've highlighted here are ethical conflicts that you see when you look at your values versus when you look at SpaceX operations, do you want the SpaceX stock in your portfolio? If you don't want it, what are you thinking to do about it? Sound off in the comments. If you do want it, why? Talk to me. Let me know in the comments. If you don't feel like the things that I raised were actually genuinely ethical issues, also talk to me in the comments. We want to hear what you got to say. Because I'm interested in your thought process. All right, y'all. As for me and my house, we no want tea. We don't want go near it. We don't want it. However, acknowledging that I do actually need to talk to my financial advisor. Because in Jamaica, we don't have the Vanguards and the Fidelities where you can, I think we do have some brokerage, like you can get a brokerage account through a bank. But I don't remember if you can buy international funds in that brokerage account, international index funds in that brokerage account, or just any fund in general. And I also don't remember if you do what the taxes are, because I'm sure there are taxes. So I went the easy route and went with a financial advisor, acknowledging what Ramit Sethi always says, that they scam you and the AUM is set there. I know. Is AUM? AUM is a term? I forget. The fee they charge is intense. However, I need to talk to them and find out what exactly is in, because I have investments that I am sure have US stocks in them. But I just need to figure out what percentage of my investments are in US stocks. And if we can find some of the companies, then I don't think they're going to disclose everything to me, because they like to keep their trade secrets or whatever. But I'd be curious. I need to talk to my financial advisor. In any case, y'all, me not get no more money for investing in nothing when name S&P 500 or SpaceX stock. All right, I am not doing it. I don't want those stocks. For me, they are in conflict with my ethics, and I personally cannot say the ends justify the means at this point. That may change. I may change my mind. I don't know. But for me personally, I can't say it. But I'm curious to hear what y'all think. Drop your comments below. I would love to hear what y'all have to say on this. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. We talk all things ethical and conscious investing around here. So if you want to stick around for these conversations, feel free to subscribe. I'll see you in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.